This 100-year-old artwork by a famous artist was just sitting around my home. Okay, technically it's neither an artwork nor an original, but the right angles and colorful squares on this hairstyling product strongly remind me of works by Piet Mondrian. Of course, you could call it a coincidence, but if you look at the design of this product line from the 1980s, the reference to Mondiran becomes clearer. And this isn't an isolated case. Mondrian had a major impact on the Bauhaus style, and with it, the clear, simple design of the 20th and 21st century. For over 100 years, we have encountered Mondrian's style in our daily lives, sometimes as a direct reference, as with a hairstyling product, and sometimes through the adaptation of his design principles in fashion, furniture, or buildings. But when you stand in front of a Mondrian painting, you have to ask yourself, what is this all about? What do all these lines and squares mean? And why is it so famous? At first glance, the painting looks like a random, perhaps even somewhat boring puzzle of simple squares and rectangles. But in reality, it contains a lot of thought, a bit of esotericism, and the desire for a radical new order. To understand this, it's best to start at the very beginning. The visionary. Piet Mondrian, born in 1872 in the Netherlands, is one of the most important figures in 20th century modern art. However, his artistic journey began differently than one might expect. His early works, often impressionist or post-impressionist landscapes, are characterized by a calm, true-to-life manner. It is hard to imagine that these trees, windmills and fields came from the same painter who later became known for his abstraction. Yet, even in these paintings, one can see a hint of his later development. The transformation from a conventional talent to one of the greatest pioneers of his time was a long process. Mondrian often worked in series to progressively deconstruct a motif. A well-known example is his Tree series, in which he first painted a tree with intense, recognizable colors, only to simplify it further in subsequent works. In the end, all that remained was a grid of lines representing the tree's basic structure. Two crucial influences accelerated this artistic development: Cubism and Theosophy. When Mondrian saw the works of Pablo Picasso and George Braque in Amsterdam in 1911, he was fascinated by their way of reducing forms. He moved to Paris in 1912 to deepen these ideas. He used the principles of Cubism and limited his color palette to ochre, brown and gray to focus solely on form. However, Mondrian was convinced that the Cubists stopped too soon, because they never completely dissolved the original motif. He wanted to leave representational art behind entirely. And this is where the second, even more important influence comes into play: Theosophy. Theosophy is a worldview founded in New York in 1875 by Helena Blavatsky to study secret doctrines from various religions and create a new world religion. It was supposed to find the common and only true core of all religions, thereby uniting all people. Mondrian joined the Theosophical Society in 1909. Mondrian even said himself that he received everything from the secret doctrine by Helena Blavatsky. The teachings of Theosophy had a strong effect on his art. For him, art was not just about aesthetics. He wanted to leave out everything non-essential, to get to the core and make the fundamental universal truth visible: the meaning. From the interplay of Cubism and Theosophy, Mondrian developed his own art movement, Neoplasticism. He wanted to create a universal visual language that overcomes the chaos of the world and create order and balance. He was convinced that his art could serve as a blueprint for a more harmonious society. With this background, we can take a closer look at his famous composition with red, yellow, blue and black from 1921. Every element in this work has a deeper meaning that comes from Mondrian's theosophical beliefs. The black lines are not just frames. The horizontal and vertical lines represent the two fundamental opposing forces in the universe. The horizontal lines stand for feminine energy, the static, like the sea or the horizon, while the vertical lines represent masculine energy, the dynamic, similar to trees in the forest or an architectural structure. Where these lines meet, a balance of both forces is created. The surface between the lines also have a meaning. Mondrian did not randomly use the primary colors red, yellow and blue, as well as the non-colors black, white and gray. For Mondrian, the primary colors represent the universal elementary forces of the world, just as all colors can be mixed from the primary colors. By limiting himself to them, he wanted to free art from all individual, emotional and accidental elements. Red stands for energy, yellow for the spiritual and enlightenment, and blue for tranquility and infinity. Additionally, Mondrian rejected symmetry because he found it boring. Instead, he wanted a dynamic balance, where the elements created a harmonious tension through their placement and size. A small colored field can balance the weight of a much larger white area through its intense color and position. His art was meant to show how elements of different sizes and positions can be of equal value, if only they are arranged correctly. For Mondrian, his art was a proposal for how a society that has lost its balance could become harmonious again, through equal relationships. A crazy coincidence. In the 1930s, Mondrian had to flee the political uncertainty in Europe and finally landed in New York in 1940. The city's dynamic energy and vibrancy gave him new inspiration. In his painting Broadway Boogie Woogie, the strict black lines of his earlier works are gone. Instead, he painted a grid of yellow lines combined with small squares in red, gray and blue. These small color blocks seem to move rhythmically and capture the lively atmosphere of the American metropolis, like cars on the streets of New York, seen from a skyscraper and underscored by the jazz of the 1940s. A story that only emerged after Mondrian's death shows that even art experts can reach their limits with abstract art. It was all about his painting, New York City 1. Mondrian had stuck colored tapes on the canvas for it. For decades, the painting was hung upside down. A photo from his studio showed the painting in a different orientation that it had been exhibited in museums since 1945. Because Mondrian had not signed the painting, there was no traditional top or bottom in art that does not have any objective reference. The correct orientation became a subjective question that the museum in Düsseldorf decided for itself. The decades-long hanging was maintained because the debate about it is now forever linked to the artwork, and rehanging it after over 75 years could damage it. This story shows that there isn't always just one truth in abstract art. A lot also depends on personal perception. Mondrian's legacy. Mondrian's great goal was to bridge the gap between art and reality. And when you think about it now, it becomes clear that he achieved exactly that. By reducing to the essential, he wanted to create a new, harmonious world. A world based on simplicity and clarity. His ideas became the foundation of modern design. The De Stijl movement, which he co-founded, influenced architects and designers who integrated his principles into their designs, such as Gerrit Rietveld's famous Schröder House or the Bauhaus School. Even fashion designer Yves Saint Laurent transformed his art into the iconic Mondrian dresses, which blurred the line between art and fashion. Mondrian's influence extends into our modern graphic design today. The grid, the clear layouts, the minimalist approach. All of this is part of the less is more design philosophy that you can see in countless logos, websites and magazines today. And so the circle closes back to our hairstyling product from the beginning. The simple squares are, in truth, an expression of the deeply human desire to find order and harmony in an increasingly chaotic world. His art was not just meant to be beautiful, it was supposed to provide a model for a better society. With this knowledge in mind, you see Mondrian's work in a different light. Suddenly, the black lines and colorful squares are not so boring after all. They have a meaning. The next time you notice a minimalist logo or a modern building, remember how an artist over 100 years ago shaped our view of design and harmony, and how a search for a deeper truth shaped the visual DNA of our modern world. Because Mondrian lives not only in museums, but also in our everyday lives. And that's why it's art.